Hey guys, so welcome back to Destin Reads Romance. I'm Destin, and today I'm here with another weekly wrap-up. I have a lot to say about certain books during this weekly wrap-up, so I'm hoping that it's not going to be too long. I will try to be as concise as possible, but I do have a lot to say about Tryst Six Venom. But before we do, I have new glasses. I just want to talk about them for a second because I totally did not realize that these glasses had sparkles on the side whenever I ordered them. But when I got them in, I was like, this is so great. I'm so excited that these glasses have sparkles on the side. So they're on like the very side, the very edge. It's like almost like bedazzled. You can see it better this way. It's almost bedazzled. And I've been getting so many compliments. I went to Costco the other day and I had so many people stop me and be like, I really like your glasses. I love it. I love it. I love new glasses. I have an addiction. I have a problem. I know it's true. I did get these from a new website, Firmoo, because I saw Jess from Peace Love Books talk about that website and I was like, new glasses website? I have to go check them out. So I did and I ordered a couple. I also ordered prescription sunglasses from Firmoo as well, which I've never gotten prescription sunglasses before because I was like, that's an old lady thing. But I'm like, no, I need them. I need them. I only wear glasses and I need some prescription sunglasses. Anyway, now that that random conversation has ended, let's talk about the books. First up, I have Bad for the Boss by Talia Hibbert. This was part of my June TBR and I was trying so desperately to make sure that I was checking off books for my TBR, not just reading random ones like I kind of started to do during the beginning of June. And Bad for the Boss is the first book in her Just for Him series. It is a Boston employee romance. I really love how this book started out. So Jenny is working, she just got this job. Because she had such a great social media presence, she was tapped by this marketing firm to come on and help them with their like marketing, and there's a new job coming up to do with social media, but she likes to message her manager, Priyanka, about this dude that they call Johnny Bravo, who's kind of harassing her, and they kind of just joke about it. He hasn't done anything crazy, but it's still very annoying the way that he comes on to her, and she accidentally sends it to one of the partners for this marketing firm instead of her friend Priyanka because she was searching in the directory and they have like similar last names. And Theo is known for being very standoffish. He's always closed up in his own office. He doesn't walk around and interact with people, not like his other partner. And I think his name is Rick, who Jenny works under Priyanka, who works under Rick. So she's never had any contact with Theo before and she's freaking out. Like, I just sent the partner this message and Theo actually responds back and it starts this really cute little email exchange. And I love the way that this romance started off. Theo was so gone for Jenny almost immediately. Jenny was like, I don't know, this is not a good idea. This is not a good idea for us to be interacting like this, but he is so gone for her. And I do really enjoy the hero really pursuing the heroine. I feel like sometimes Jenny annoyed me just a tad bit because her unwillingness to accept attention from Theo, and not that I blame her for not wanting to get involved with a boss because it could be bad for her career. She just burned a little hot and cold. Sometimes she was really into Theo and then other times she was like, oh no, run away type of thing. And also she wasn't taking her safety seriously because she has gone through a traumatic past. Her parents were murdered and she was in the house when it happened when she was 12 years old. And so she has some triggers. And then stuff starts happening in present day. Some weird things start happening at her apartment and Theo's very concerned for her. And sometimes she was like pushing away his concern and getting a little aggravated because Theo could be a little high-handed, but I'm also like, you should take this stuff kind of seriously. So she annoyed me just a tad bit, but I thought that they were a really cute couple. It wasn't a very long book either, so I gave this book 3.5 stars. It was pretty enjoyable, but not my favorite from Talia Hibbert. Like once you read some of Talia Hibbert's more recent works and then you go back to this one, it's like, these were good, but they're not the same type of writing style that she's actually doing now. So that's why it's only a 3.5 stars. It's still great. Okay, so next I have Tryst Six Venom by Penelope Douglas, and I'm being upfront, I DNF'd this book at the halfway mark. Actually, it was 45%. I couldn't quite push myself into the halfway mark because I was so upset with a lot of what was happening. I just couldn't do it. I've read quite a few Penelope Douglas books. I haven't read all of her books, but I have read quite a few. Like I've read her whole Bully series, the Fall Away series, I believe that's what the official title of it's called, but I call it Bully because the first one's called Bully. I've read those. I've read a lot of her standalones. I actually read Punk 57 right before I read Tryst Six Venom for the very first time. And that's a bully romance, and I really like that one. I gave Punk 57 5 stars. And I've also read some of her Devil's Night series. I read Corrupt, and I read the third book, which I can't remember the title for that one. I'm not a fan of her Corrupt series as much. Those don't do it for me. And I feel like Tryst Six Venom, it's a bully romance, but the antics in the Corrupt series are a little bit over the top. And I think that she draws more from the vibe of the Corrupt series than she does from like Punk 57 or from Bully. Now, in general, bully romances are a hard sell, especially since bully romances, specifically like that trope, usually involves characters that are in high school or in college, like new adult age. But you will see elements of like bullying, things that bullies tend to do, like humiliation, degradation, stuff like that in darker romances. Like I've read dark romances where you could consider the anti-hero or anti-heroine a bully, but it's like a different vibe and like straight up taboo or dark romance than it is with bully. And it has to do with the setting. It takes on a different vibe when you put kids in these situations. And yeah, they're like 17, 18, whatever. But the fact that they're in a school with teachers around them, with their parents, they're still under the thumb of their parents and stuff like that, it kind of is a tougher pill to swallow sometimes. And I think that that's what I really had a problem with in Tryst Six Venom. So this is Penelope Douglas's first sapphic romance. One of the heroines, Clay, comes from money. Her parents are very wealthy. She's in this like sorority for high school, which I've never heard of before in my life. I had no idea that high schools had sororities. And it's also kind of like charity leads to like a debutante ball and all at the end. And I'm assuming that the debutante ball would kind of like come into play toward the end of the book. But Clay has her issues, and she is the biggest bully in this romance. And Clay's character is the reason why Tryst Six Venom did not work for me. Then we have Liv, and she lives in like the poorer part of town, and she actually got like a scholarship to attend this very prestigious high school because of her grades and stuff. She is into theater. She really is wanting to play the role of Mercutio, and she gets shot down for it. She's trying to have some prominent roles that would feature on her resume for when she goes to college. She really wants to get out of this town. She has a lot of brothers. They're called like the Tryst Six, so she has 5 siblings. She's the only girl, but she longs to get out of this town because it's your classic small town that the rich and the elite get away with so much, and she's just kind of sick of it. And the way that Clay has really bullied her the whole time that she's been at this school is coming to a head. It's getting to a point where some of the things that Clay's doing is so unbearable. And I was so turned off by the things that Clay was doing. She was doing some heinous things. And I don't know if Penelope Douglas felt like she needed to one-up herself with some of the things that Clay was doing, but for bully romances, there's a fine line between, oh, this is kind of classic bully thing to do, humiliating, saying something that's a little embarrassing in front of other people, and of course it's humiliating and you feel for the person that's being bullied. But the things that Clay was doing, I was like, this is kind of awful. As a person who does enjoy reading bully romances, I do often pick up bully romances. One of the things that I need to have for a bully romance to work is that whatever is causing the person who is doing the bullying to act in that way, I need to be able to empathize with them and understand them. And I felt like what Clay is going through did not excuse her behavior. So I'm going to go into a couple of spoilers. Like I said, I've only read half the book, so I mean, not that much spoilers, but I will tell you why, at least from the information that I have from reading half the book, why I don't think that this excuses her behavior. So Clay had a little brother, and he was diagnosed with leukemia, and he died. I think he was 10 years old whenever he died. And it's been a couple of years since her brother has died. Her parents, they're not divorced, but they kind of have gone their own separate ways. She was closer with her dad, but her dad spends a lot of time in Miami than he does at home. And everyone knows that her dad has a mistress, and basically just kind of like he wants to start his life over. Then her mom is just throwing herself into shopping, throwing herself into being one of the elite in society. She does her charities or whatever. And it's like nobody really sees Clay, so she feels like the forgotten child. It's like, yes, we lost one child, but I'm still here. Like, they still have another daughter, and even though I'm 18, like, that doesn't mean I don't need my parents anymore, but it seems like the family's just broken. They don't pay attention to me anymore. She's also struggling with her sexuality because she is attracted to Liv. Liv is out openly as a lesbian in school. She's already getting flack just from everyone in general, and especially from Clay, because Clay does not want to be attracted to Liv. She wants to be normal. She's like, I should be attracted to this absolute douche nozzle. Don't know why she thinks that this is the person that she needs to be attracted to, but she's trying so hard to be normal, and she takes a lot of that out on Liv. She hates that she feels that way. But it's also a power trip. It's a power trip for Clay. And one of the things that is kind of a fine line to cross for me for bully romances is, it sounds weird to say, but it's more understandable when it's one person doing the bullying against their love interest than it is with the person who's doing the bullying and they get all their friends into the mix, because it makes it just, it's not just like a personal game that the two love interests are playing with each other. It becomes a little greater because you're encouraging other people to treat these people in that way, and that is a harder pill to swallow, seeing the way that Clay encourages her horrible friends to laugh and jeer and escalate the bullying on her behalf as well. Like, I didn't like that. I did not like that at all. Clay at one point like dumps trash on this girl who is helping Liv while they're working out, and Clay's being jealous. And the stuff that she was saying, I was just like, where are the parents? Where are the teachers? Like, nobody's seeing this and they're just allowing this to happen. I think that it's so unbelievable that Clay is able to get away with blatant bullying. There's no subtlety to Clay's bullying. Absolutely no subtlety. She is being publicly horrible. Publicly. Anybody could see her bullying, and she just does not care. She has no fear of being caught. She has no fear of repercussions, and I totally understand that in bully romances. You have to suspend some disbelief when it comes to, oh, nobody's paying attention to this type of thing. But Clay's so out there in the open with her bullying that I'm like, it's kind of hard to believe that nobody is trying to help Liv or any other people who's being bullied on her behalf. Every time I talk about bully romances, I feel like I have to bring in Carter Mahoney to the conversation, because I just feel like a lot of people are gonna be like, well, why is Clay's behavior not okay, but Carter Mahoney's behavior, why was his okay? Why did you accept his behavior? Because he did some horrible things to the love interest. And I think it's because Carter Mahoney is literally a psychopath. Like, clinically, he is a psychopath. He is lacking some sort of element of empathy towards others. His brain does not function on the same way that everyone else does. Clay is not a psychopath, she's just mean. Liv is unwilling, at least where I left off in this thing. I mean, she was empathizing with Clay. I didn't understand why she would give Clay a second chance because of the amount of things that was happening to her and others. I don't understand why she would forgive Clay for what she was doing. Zoe was willing to play along, and she expressed an interest in Carter Mahoney from almost the start. After the first scene where he assaults her, she still was willing to try to understand him. So that made the difference, because I was like, the heroine's a little bit okay with what was happening to her. Liv was not. Liv was aggravated. So that's the difference for me. I was like, I'm intrigued to see where this goes. How are these two people connecting with Carter Mahoney and Zoe? But with Liv and Clay, I was just like, you're literally hurting this other person, putting them through hell. They don't want it. They're trying to remove themselves from the situation, and you're just escalating it because you're feeling so much pain inside. You want other people to feel pain so that they attack you back. Like, literally, Clay is a masochist. She wants somebody to hurt her. She wants somebody to scratch her, make her bleed, because she feels so awful inside. And I'm just like, it's too much. It's too much. It was too much for me to get on board with Clay. That's why I don't like this book. I wish it was different. I wish that I didn't feel like Penelope Douglas feels. Like, this is totally my opinion. I wish that I didn't feel like Penelope Douglas is trying to one-up herself in the bullying game. In Punk 57, I was so understanding of Ryan and why she felt like she needed to deflect attention to other people. And she felt so much remorse. She's like, I know I'm painting a target on this other person, but like, I just can't feel that way again like I felt whenever I was younger when I was bullied myself. Like, I know it's horrible, but it's better someone else than me. And I understood her as a character. And I also understood that Misha was bullying Ryan as well because he was very upset because she was basically lying about who she was and she wasn't the person that she presented herself to Misha. And I understood that as well. I understood the dynamic. I understood why they were acting the way that they did, and I empathized with them. I just feel like for Tryst Six Venom, it was so over the top. Was it necessary to go this far with the bullying? I don't think so. Everyone has their limits with bully romance. Everyone has things that they're willing to forgive and be like, this is plausible. I think that they could still have a good relationship even after going through all this stuff. For me, Tryst Six Venom didn't work where others have in the past. And that's totally personal because I know a lot of people that really thought that Tryst Six Venom was amazing. I was just so upset that I just could not push myself to finish it. Like, I was miserable. I hate feeling miserable while I'm reading. That's not why I choose to read, and that's why I chose to DNF. So everyone could be like, oh, but you should have read to the end. But I'm like, it's like a risk to finish a book hoping that the ending will justify the emotional turmoil that I was feeling. I know it's like crazy to think that I was feeling so anxious while reading this book, and I really was. It's not worth it for me to feel that way for hours and hours and hours and then be like, oh, satisfying ending at the end. I don't know. It's too much of a risk for me to finish it, so I chose to call it quits. Okay, I talked about this book way too long. I'm so sorry. DNF, I don't like it. End of story. Next, I read Indigo by Beverly Jenkins. And this was such a phenomenal book. It is my new favorite by Beverly Jenkins. I've only read a handful of hers. I still have so many that I need to read. But Indigo was one of the most romantic historical romances that I've ever read. And Galen, the hero in this book, is so fantastic. I love it so much. I enjoyed the Rick Appreciation Society live show. I enjoyed talking about these characters and what made this so amazing. The characters are phenomenal. The story was the perfect setup. I just loved everything. So Galen and the heroine Hester are part of the Underground Railroad. Hester was actually a former slave. Her father sold herself into slavery to be with her mother. He sacrificed his own freedom to be with the mother. And he actually was a freed black man, and he gave up all of his lands and his wealth and everything, and his sister took care of all of his lands while he was a slave. When the master, who had an agreement with Hester's father, died and his son took over, he sold Hester, sold the mother, and the father ended up by dying, and he wrote to his sister before he died saying, like, can you go find Hester? She rescues Hester from, I think it was an island in the Carolinas, and they worked in indigo fields, and so this is why it's called Indigo, because Hester, her palms and her feet were stained the color indigo. And so it was a very prominent mark of, I was once a slave, because you cannot get rid of this dye on your palms and your feet. And it's something that she likes to cover up. She likes to wear gloves. She doesn't like to show people this. And I think that what made this book so beautiful is that Galen, the hero, turned something that she's so self-conscious about, and this is something that was mentioned in a live show, and I'm just like, it's so true. Something that she was so self-conscious about, he turned it into something that he loved about her. He started calling her my petite indigo, and he was talking about how much he loved her hands and stuff. It was just so fucking romantic. Galen is just, he's amazing. He's such a sweet talking Frenchman. I love him. He's from New Orleans. He's very rich, very wealthy, and he kind of fell into this role in the Underground Railroad, rescuing families, one family at a time. And how Hester and Galen meet, Galen gets injured and she ends up by nursing him back to health, hiding him from people who are hunting him down. And at first he's so grumpy and trusting of Hester, and then he recovers and he will not leave Hester. He becomes obsessed with her, and she's just like, oh, he was very charming, he was very cute, but now he has to go back to his life. But no, he inserts himself into her life, and he is just so persistent. And she feels like she can never be his wife. They can never have a life together because he's mulatto. They're treated a little bit better because of their lighter skin, and he comes from wealth and money, and she's like, they're gonna look down on me. I have darker skin. I am a former slave. I can never escape that identity because of my hands and my feet. You don't want me for a wife. And Galen's just like, I do. I want you. I want you. And he just convinces her. There's so many beautiful swoony scenes, and I'm just like, Beverly Jenkins, that was amazing. Obviously, 5 stars for that book. I loved it so much. Then I read an arc for Last Guard by Nalini Singh. This is like book 20 in the Side Changeling series. I think like book 5 in the Side Trinity series. And at this point, it's very hard to explain the plot because of the evolution of this world that has happened over the course of 20 books. You can quite imagine how different the scene is from book 1's Life to Sensation to Last Guard, and it's very hard to explain these characters if you've not already been in the Psy Changeling world, but I'm gonna do my best. When I requested this arc and I got accepted, I was a little bit, I don't want to say disappointed, but I tend to not enjoy Psy pairings as much as I do a Psy Changeling pairing or changeling pairing, because Psy have been conditioned to not be emotional. Emotion is like a weakness, and that's the whole shtick with Psy. And changelings are very feeling. They're all about family, community, emotions make a stronger type of thing. And I like the juxtaposition of having characters like a Psy and a changeling in a romance together, because it's opposites attract, and I really enjoy that. And whenever you get a Psy pairing, it's like both of them are closed off. Both of them are Icemen. It's hard to like break into that shell because they don't want to let anybody in, let alone somebody who they're starting to feel feelings for. I'm so glad to say that I was completely wrong, and these characters are so unique and I love them so much. So this is sort of like a childhood friends romance, because the Psy were known to put their kids through some rigorous torture to make sure that they weren't feeling emotional, and some children who had very strong abilities like telepathy or telekinesis were treated even more horribly. So both of the characters, Payol, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name correctly, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but Payol is the heroine, and Canton, they were both in this kind of rehabilitation center where adults literally were torturing kids. And Payol actually saves Canton's life, and he has been searching for her for years. And they didn't even know each other's name. They thought their name was like J3, J7, T3, whatever. They had like very dehumanizing names that they were called in this thing. Canton was rescued by his mother's family, the Merkants, and they are prominent in this series. If you've read any books in the previous series, you'll recognize the Merkant name. Silver Silence was the first book where we had a Merkant heroine or main character, and they feature prominently there. I'm so happy to say that if you like Silver Silence and you liked the bear changelings, they are very prominent in this book, and I love them so much. They speak in the best way. I just love the way that the bears operate. It was just delightful, absolutely delightful. And what makes this book so great is that Canton Merkant, the Merkants operate in a totally different way than normal Psy do. They're all about family and like fuck everybody else. They are very insular, and like they could be so powerful, but they prefer to back powerful people. They're a force to be reckoned with. Just don't fuck with the Merkants, okay? And so when Canton was discovered, he had this tumor and he's paralyzed from the waist down. So he does not have the ability to move his legs, and so he's wheelchair bound. He also has a secondary function. He's telepathic, but he has a secondary function because he's an anchor for the Psynet. Very complicated to explain, so I'm not gonna, but just know Canton is an anchor, and so is Payol. And that's how they end up by meeting again, is because they believe that the anchors have something to contribute with all the fluctuations that the net is experiencing. There's very high stakes for the net to be stabilized, and he contacts Payol because he knows that she is a very prominent anchor. She's a Cardinal TK, and he wants her to be the voice for the anchors because she's already the CEO of her family's company. Her reputation as like this cold, closed off woman, he's like, that's gonna help us. And whenever they meet, they realize that they knew each other as children, and that this was the girl who he was searching for forever. And I love it because Canton is such a grumpy hero. He has like a very bearish personality, and that's why this romance works so much for me, because he's such like a foul-mouthed Grumposaurus, and he has so many feelings rushing through him. And Payol, I mean, the way that he is just like, I found you, I'm not gonna let you go type of thing. It was the most beautiful romance. I loved it so much. I do feel like the overall plot for Psy Changeling, it's very like slow going. Each book that we get in this new Trinity series, it's very like they know something has to give to change and save the Psynet and save the future existence of all Psys. But every single book, the solution that they come up with is only like a patch job. It's only like a temporary little band-aid that they're putting on it. And so something's got to give, which is why, even though I love this book so much, I feel like overall there needs to be kind of like a second gen side changeling series to come out. Like, we need to close out these characters that we've been with for 20 books. We need to close out this generation of characters and like go to like something else is happening. I still gave this book 5 stars, but I'm like, let's stabilize this net, and I want to see what's happening in the world 7 years from now. I want to see how the world is behaving. I want to see some of these young characters grow up. I want Kit to have a book. I'm like, where are my next gen size? That's what I want. I'm in changelings, whatever. I want my next gens. I do. As much as I love this one and as much as I give this book 5 stars, I still want my next gens. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that this arc is going to be closed out kind of soon, and we could move on from this very slow-moving, overarching plot. Then I read The Bully by Sophie Lark, and this is the 3rd book in her Kingmaker series, and this is a new adult mafia romance where the kids of these mafia families, they go to college at the Kingmakers, and it basically trains you to be a future mafia boss, a future mafia accountant, an enforcer, and a spy. You cannot jump into The Bully without reading The Heir and The Rebel, and it's so hard to explain the premise of the story, so I'm gonna have to be very vague, especially since in the synopsis you don't even know who the heroine is. If you read The Rebel, then you'll definitely know who it's going to be about, but this is a bully romance that 100% worked for me. I gave this book 5 stars. Dean knows something about the heroine that she does not want anybody to know, obviously, and he's using it to blackmail her. And Dean, I totally understood why he would be this person who is bullied, and it has a lot to do with his past. It has a lot to do with the sins of the father type of thing. It just freaking worked. It just freaking worked. The type of bullying was like, it wasn't anything that I couldn't get over, and let me tell you, the bullying stopped at around 25% into the book, or 30% into the book. That's what I want. I need to get over the bullying aspect. I need to see these people together. And it was so freaking hot. Sophie Lark like outdid herself with the steam in this book. I thought that it was absolutely beautiful. There's so many things happening. This series does have a 3rd point of view. They, in The Heir and The Rebel, there was a 3rd point of view, and it was more prominent in The Heir and The Rebel. Usually I don't like having an additional point of view besides my hero and the heroine, but it works for the series. This one was a little bit different because the 3rd point of view is titled The Spy. The 4th book in the series coming out next month is titled The Spy, and the whole thing is you don't know who the spy is. I have a theory, and I don't want to give out any spoilers or anything, so I'm not going to talk about my theory, but I will say that I would not have dreamed to make this connection if I didn't have that teaser at the end of The Bully for The Spy. Without that teaser chapter, that prologue for The Spy, I would have not made this connection. The chapters that The Spy has in The Bully are so subtle. I could not have made that jump with those chapters alone. I'm so excited for The Spy. I'm so excited. I have so many feelings to talk about, so many feelings. Also, I was listening to the playlist that Sophie Lark made for The Bully, and it's phenomenal. It was so good. I was just like, so good. So yeah, definitely a new favorite couple by Sophie Lark is the couple for The Bully. It was phenomenal. 5 freaking stars. I can't wait to get my paperback copy. Like, I just love the covers for this series so much. Next, I read When the Stars Fall by Emery Rose. This was part of my June TBR as well. I read 2 books by Emery Rose before, and I did really like them. I would say that she has quite a bit of angst in those 2 that I read before. Oh my gosh, I totally blanked on what they were called. Let me go check. Wilder Love and Sweet Chaos. Those 2, it's not a duet. They're 2 separate stories, but they are 2 books in the same series. And the level of angst in those, it just worked for me. I just really like the story. She has the same level of angst for this one, I would say, but the story just didn't work for me as well. And I would say that Emery Rose is one of those authors, and there's a handful that I've read that do this format, and I call it like the Nicholas Sparks format, where the characters meet whenever they're young or like teenagers, and then there's a time jump, and then they meet again whenever they're older, and there's just lots of angst that is tied up in their relationship, and Emery Rose likes to do that. Like I said, Wilder Love and Sweet Chaos really worked for me, and they had those formats. This one did not, because half the book, it's split into 3 parts. Part 1 is them meeting each other when they are 9 years old. They become neighbors, they become friends, but also like they have a lot of competition tied up in their relationship. They love to race, they love to one-up each other, all that jazz. They don't actually have a relationship when they were younger besides friends. They both kind of like each other, but nothing ever really comes of it in part 1. They don't actually date. Not really. Not really. So half of the book is part 1. And I was just like, I'm missing the romance. I at least want some romance to be in part 1 if it's going to be half the book. Part 2 is he has returned from the Marines. He signed up to be a Marine, and he has severe PTSD. Severe PTSD. He doesn't know how to deal with it. He doesn't have the resources to deal with it. Like a lot of veterans don't have resources in real life to deal with that. It reminded me a lot of that movie with Shailene Woodley and Miles Teller. And he was suffering from PTSD, and I totally blanked on what that movie's called, but that's what it reminded me a lot of. And then part 3 is like 5 years after that. So there was just a lot of angst. I felt like if more of the book happened during the timeline that we're in part 3, I would have liked it a lot more, but I didn't feel like it justified focusing so much on how they grew up together. Like, everything in part 1 could have been condensed to like 4 or 5 chapters. It really could have. And it would have had the same level of impact. I would have still seen, oh, they grew up together and they finally got on the same page when they were 18 and then he left. So I just wish I had more of them as adults and being happy, because they were very miserable for a lot of the book. So 3 stars for this book. All right, that's all the books that I read for this week. I'm in the middle of reading The Viscount Made Me Do It by Diana Quincy. I am really enjoying it so far, so I'll talk about that book next week once I finish. The mail is being delivered and Belle is just barking up a storm. I'm sorry. But if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to get notified on any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with a little HEA. Bye, guys.